G'day guys, I'm ChampChong, and today's video will be a little bit different to my usual stuff. It's a little bit more serious, and it's just an overall discussion with you guys. Feel free to leave your comments down below with your opinions, and if you do end up enjoying this video format, please smack that like button. And now, let's dive into the topic at hand. So, Donald Trump. President Donald Trump wants to look into banning violent video games in America. Well, it's because of the recent school shootings in America, and clearly this is all because of kids that play violent video games, and definitely not because people with mental health issues have easy access to guns in America. Totally not because of that. And this is totally not sarcasm. Okay, so actually let's be real for a second and take a real look at this issue. I'm Australian, and some Americans that do end up watching this video are going to tell me to stay away from this topic. Well, I'm not gonna do that because I'm a gamer, and gamers live all around the world, not just in America. And guess what? Violent video games, they exist all around the world and not just in America. This video isn't necessarily tackling the whole gun culture thing in America. This video is about violent video games in America and the rest of the world. It's all about video games, not about guns. I'm not here to talk about guns and stuff, even though I will mention them in this video, obviously. The whole argument that violent video games cause these mass shootings in America at schools and other places is honestly just such a ridiculous excuse from such a ridiculous human being in Donald Trump. Blaming violent video games rather than tackling the real issue at hand, which is mental health. A mental health epidemic is happening in America. It has been happening for quite a long time already. And also the accessibility to semi-automatic weapons is a huge issue too. And speaking of semi-automatic weapons, I'm not gonna talk about them necessarily in this video, just as I stated. And one thing I will definitely not talk about is banning those weapons in America, because it's not my place to talk about that kind of stuff. I'm not from America, I don't live in America, and I shouldn't be throwing my opinion about banning guns in America. It's just not my place to stand with that topic, so I will not touch banning guns in this video. That's honestly for the Americans out there to figure out on their own for their own country, and it's not for some kangaroo riding Australian dude to talk about instead. So what I am covering in this video, like I've stated, is video games. Specifically, violent video games and how they affect people and how they have affected people in the past and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be talking about violent video games in this video. And the first place we will take a look at, and it's a quick look at, is Japan. We all know that Japan loves its video games. When most people think of Japan, one of the first things they think about is probably video games and the culture of video games in Japan. A lot of those video games in Japan also happen to be violent video games and involve a lot of monster killing and just killing in general. But the interesting thing is, Japan has one of the lowest violent crime rates in the world, even though they happen to have a lot of violent video games. I recently visited Japan in September of last year, and I've never felt so safe in my entire life walking through an entirely new country. I visited places all over Europe, Asia, and I visited America countless times. I've probably spent a year plus in America in total. But walking through Japan was a completely different experience. I felt completely safe. I walked through a place known as Akihabara, which is in Tokyo, and I saw video games everywhere. It's pretty much video game central. It is the gamer's heaven of the world. You'd see kids from young ages playing video games that were either violent or just fun, non-violent games, and then you'd see the adults doing the same thing. Video game culture is truly the mainstay of Japan in this day and age. And yet, even though some of these video games happen to be violent, we still don't see those same crime issues and those violent crime issues that we see in America. And the same goes for the rest of the world. You can play GTA, Call of Duty, Doom, or any violent video game in almost every country around the world. It's not just America that you can play these games in, yet for some reason it seems that America is the only one blaming these video games for violent acts against human beings every single month or so. So the question is, why do do we only see America blaming violent video games as the cause of all these violent crimes? Well, it's a simple answer. It's because Donald Trump and all his buddies who clearly have been brought out by the NRA now have to use violent video games as a scapegoat. Just take a look at this. The NRA actually donated $21 million to Donald Trump for his presidential campaign. That's insane. That's the most amount that they've ever donated to a presidential campaign, and they gave that to Donald Trump for his run. He's clearly not going to blame weapons. He's not going to blame those guns in any sort of way because, well, he's been bought out by the NRA. So what does he do instead? Well, he decides to blame violent video games, even though there have been countless studies to show that, that doesn't correlate at all. For example, over here in Australia, where I live, where I'm from, and proud to be from, we used to have much stricter laws on violent video games up until just a few years ago. Our games were actually altered, or in some cases completely banned if they were too violent and didn't pass the governing board's reasonings. However, even though a few years ago we decided to abolish those laws and make them a little less strict than they were previously and allow violent video games to flow freely through our country and into our gamers' hands, we haven't actually seen an increase in violent crimes such as we've seen in America. Kids over here in Australia aren't going to school and shooting or stabbing other kids because they play violent video games. It just isn't happening here, or in Japan, or anywhere else in the world, except for America. The thing is, I grew up with violent video games such as GTA. Hell, I played GTA 2, 3, 4, Vice City. I also played San Andreas, and I played a bunch of those games growing up, but I've never gone outside to try and steal a car, then get a 6-star wanted level and run away from the police. No, I've never done anything like that. Because the thing is, I'm not completely insane. It just doesn't work that way. One thing I have done though, is I've shot real guns at a shooting range, and I've never ever dared to even point a loaded weapon at another human being. I've always been extra careful, and I know most of you guys would be the same way too. Even if you play video games that are violent and shoot people in video games, you're not going to go out there and do the exact same thing. This goes for anyone in the world that is completely sane, even though you somehow still manage to play violent video games. And on top of all that, I've also played sports games my entire life. Then the question is, why am I not an NBA player? I'm 6'3" after all. Shouldn't my skills from NBA Live back in the day or 2K from these days transfer over to real life? Shouldn't they? Isn't that how it works? If you play a sports game, you become an athlete. If you play a shooting game, you become a school shooter. Isn't there a correlation there, Mr. Trump? No, there isn't. And this is the thing that I just keep getting to. Pointing a mouse or moving thumbstick doesn't translate to real life. What does translate into real life scenarios is what goes on in the head of a mentally disturbed person. And that's what we have a problem with around the entire world, but specifically in this case, it's got to do with America and mentally disturbed people being able to access weapons that will kill other people. It's not video games to blame. It just isn't. It's a stupid argument. It's been proven countless times that it is not video games that happen to be violent that cause these people to go outside and kill other people. And that's honestly where I'm gonna leave this video. I feel like I'm just gonna keep repeating myself, and it sucks that we do have these cases in the world where many people are dying, and it happens so that there is a coincidence that someone maybe had played a GTA or a Call of Duty that has now gone outside. But the thing is, there are millions and millions of other people who haven't done that, who happen to play those exact same games. You've got tens of millions of people playing video games every single day, tens of millions of people playing violent video games every single day, yet you don't see tens of millions of people going outside and killing others every single day. That's just the fact, that's the truth, and that's how it is. So yeah, that's it for this video. I just wanted to get all that off my chest and have a bit of a discussion with you guys. So in the comments down below, let me know your opinions and your thoughts on all this kind of stuff, and yeah, please try and keep it civilized though. Also, if you did happen to enjoy this video, please remember to smack that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.